Hi, everyone. Welcome to Build. We are very excited to be here. So my name is Julia. I'm a product manager working for Azure API Management and API Center. And I have with me today Alex, who's a global black belt, has been super supportive for all of our work doing in the API space. And we are very excited to talk to you about API management today. So we have a packed session. And our session is going to be 3 parts overall. In the first half of it, we're going to focus on the latest and greatest AI gateway capabilities. So we're going to show you all of the latest features and things that we've added in API management in particular to enhance your AI journey. Then we're going to talk about something that took everyone by storm. So we're going to talk about MCP here as well. AI Gateway meets MCP. So we are super pumped for this as well. And then last but not least, we have kind of like a spotlight, a highlight of it as well, where we're going to talk about MCP discovery and consumption. So that's where we're going to tune into API Center here. And last but not least, I also am super excited to welcome a special guest to the stage with me as well. So definitely stay tuned, and let's kickstart the session here. All right, before we are diving into some of the AI gateway capabilities, let's look at some of the challenges we are actually seeing, that we are hearing from customers. So on one side, we have AI applications, AI agents. Every session is talking about AI agents. We've heard it in the keynote. Everyone is building intelligence agents these days. On the other side, and on your backend, you have AI models, data, tools. 62% of our enterprise customers are talking about security challenges or security concerns. 71 of these enterprises are also admitting, before they can even adopt some of their AI capabilities, they're struggling in terms of how do we best track AI consumption, how do we enforce quotas, especially on a per-team base. And then last but not least, one of the challenges, 47% of the big enterprise customers or customers itself, they want to have a guardrail. They still want to be in control of these AI apps that we have on one side, on the AI models that we have on the other side. So I don't hope you're not going to be surprised when I tell you this is where Azure API Management comes in. We are the bridge between your AI agents and your AI models to help you secure in a very governed way, but also help you manage and track these consumption.
As a global black belt, I have the privilege of working with customers across the globe, and I have been witnessing their journeys on building intelligent apps and agents. And to tackle the challenges that Julia just described, the AI Gateway has emerged as a fundamental new component within the enterprise landscape. In order to make this bridge between the AI apps and agents and different models and data and tools, because we know there is no AI without apps, and we need to address these cross-cutting concerns. Gartner predicts that within three years, 70% of the organizations building apps and agents, they will adopt an AI gateway. Okay? So in this session, we will unpack some of these concepts. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here announcing the new AI Gateway capabilities of Azure API Management. The product team from Azure API Management and from Azure API Center, they have made an awesome work at a record speed on releasing all these exciting features. For traffic mediation and control, we started this journey by providing access to Azure OpenAI and the inference models from the AI Foundry. We are happy to announce as GA OpenAI compatibility with different models and also API pass-through to models from Bedrock from AWS. We are announcing preview support for the new Responses API from OpenAI, and also we are releasing SGA real-time API support using WebSockets underneath. You have saw the keynote today where the capability of API management to expose MCP, to expose APIs as MCP tools was announced. And this is announced in preview, and soon we will have as well MCP server pass-through for existing MCP servers. Then to improve security, we are announcing a new feature that we call applications that allows us to have authorizations for AI apps and agents. And we are excited to announce as well the content safety policy is now GA to be ready and used in production. To improve resilience, we have now a session-aware load balancing so that we can use with conversations supported from the assistance API and the new responses API. To improve scalability, we have now the semantic caching GA ready to be used in production. To empower developers, we have a new connector. We call it the Copilot Studio Connector, right from API Center. And to improve observability, we have a feature that was awaited for a lot of time from most of you, that we are now supporting LLM logging with response streaming support baked in. And associated with this feature, we have built-in reporting dashboards so that you can use these dashboards to understand how your models are using. And last but not least, to enhance the overall governance, we have an MCP server registry from API Center. So during this session, we will unpack all these amazing features and with a lot of demos.
All right, before we jump into the demos, big preview announcement. If you haven't signed up for our AI Gateway release channel, I highly recommend everyone to do this. So what are some of the things, especially from a product perspective, we always have to balance? On one hand, we have customers who are reliable on our product. We are supporting even Microsoft internal teams like Copilot Studio with our AI Gateway solution to be reliable on what we are providing. At the same time, we have to move fast. AI is just disrupting every industry. So we are always in the challenge of how can we stay reliable, but also how can we speed up and show our features in a very short way. So this is where we have the AI Gateway release channel. You can sign up for it, and you get more and AI-related features in advance very, very soon. With this being said, let's jump right into one of our first demos. Applications as a feature is now public available. We talked at the beginning challenges related to security. So with this, you don't need to have any API keys anymore. You can use Microsoft Entra and rely on their capabilities for you to, rather than relying on API keys, you can use OAuth tokens moving forward to enhance all of these latest and greatest capabilities here. With this being said, let's jump into the demo, Alex.
Yes, so I start with the AI Foundry, and I'm already here in AI Foundry, and I've already deployed different GPT models and also some reasoning models in this my AI Foundry deployment. I can click in one of the models, and I can see the code that I needed to invoke this model, and I can go also to the playground in order to experiment the model and to ensure that this is the model that I need for my application. And now I'm jumping to the API Management portal in order to configure an API that will allow me to expose these models to AI apps and agents. So I will select this new option that we provide, Azure AI Foundry, that will list automatically the services that I have already configured. I can see the same models that I was seeing in the AI Foundry from this screen. And I will give it a name for the API. In this case, I will just call it Open AI API. I will give a base path for the API, and I will package the API into a product. It's an important concept that we will use in this demo. And then I will ensure client compatibility. In this case, I will maintain Azure OpenAI compatibility. I have the option as well to use Inference API. And then I will configure token consumption. In this case, I will put just 500 tokens per minute. And I will set a quota. In this case, just an hourly quota on how much tokens can be consumed. And then I define a key, how to identify who is calling the API. I can use subscriptions. In this case, I'm just using IP address. Additional options like using estimations to estimate the tokens. And now I'm using application insights to send token usage. Okay, so over time, I have exact information how much tokens are being consumed for different dimensions. In this case, I just use product ID, but I can use other things. And now I will also configure the semantic caching. Very important here, I will select an embeddings model so that I will calculate the embeddings for the semantic caching, and I will configure my simulatory score for this policy, and the time to live for the cache. I will save the content safety for a later demo. And now, in this screen, I can review everything. I can see the endpoint for the API. I can see that I will use the frontiers model as the product to package the API. I can see the token consumption limits. I can see that I will send the track and token usage information to App Insights and the semantic caching configuration. And least but not last, very important, that I will use a managed identity to authenticate Azure API Management to consume the models from AI Foundry. This is a keyless approach. That is the most secure approach that I can have in this kind of environment. The API was created. I can see the operations. I can see the policies that were generated automatically. And I can open the Copilot right from Azure to help me to understand how the policy has been configured and to add new policies if necessary. From here, I will go to the settings in order to leverage this new feature that we have for LLM logging. So I just need to go to the Azure monitor, enable the diagnostic logs, and here you will see log LLM messages. I will enable this, and it will enable logging for prompts and completions. Okay, really easy, and I save, and my API now is ready to be consumed with all these capabilities that I just described. In order to consume the API, I will use this new applications feature. That I started to configure a new application. In this case, I just call it VS Code app. And while I configured the application, I said that the application is allowed to consume the Frontiers model product where I put the API that I just created. So I'm creating an authorization mechanism based on OAuth that allows me to securely consume this API. In this page, I have the steps described in order to call the API, what should I do? And at this point, I will switch to Visual Studio Code, okay, in order to generate a OAuth token and consume that API, okay? A little bit more technical. You can see a snippet of Python code. In this case, I have the same product ID configured. I run this, and I will get a token that is decoded automatically. Everyone loves to see tokens decoded. I can see the roles here with the Frontiers model. So I'm now sure that this token is able to consume this API. Notice that the Azure endpoint is the API management endpoint, and I'm using the token, and I'm not using any API key to consume this API. And I'm using the standard Azure OpenAI Python SDK on this, okay? So I will run, and I will see a completion, and now I'm confident that this is working and passing through Azure API Management when consuming the API model. And now I will run a couple of requests because I want to test the rate limit, and I will send random prompts. And I start to see the random prompts and the completions, and everything seems okay. I have a 200 status code, and then all of a sudden I start to get these 4 to 9s too many requests. Okay, that's because the rate limit was achieved, and with this chart, I can understand what happened. I have the accumulations of tokens, and I've seen that I was very close to reach the limit that I have configured for my rate limit policy. Now I want to test as well the semantic caching. But for the semantic caching, the prompts need to be similar, right? So in this case, I will just use the same exactly prompt. And I can see that in the first request, it took a little bit more than 1 second, but then it got much faster, okay? Because the completions were already cached within API management. And I can analyze the caching performance. And here I can clearly see that the first request took more time and consumed tokens. And the subsequent requests, they were faster, a better user experience, and didn't consume any tokens, okay? So I was able to save token usage by using this policy. So we are happy to announce that this semantic caching policy is now generally available. And this policy is using the Azure Managed Redis. That is a service that is more cost efficient and has better performance. And here at Build, we are announcing Azure Managed Redis as GA as well. So that represents that the semantic caching is totally ready to be used in production. So now let's imagine that my solution is already in production. And I will go to this built-in dashboard in order to understand what's happening with my different models. So I have here this built-in dashboard with token consumption. I can see total tokens, total requests for the different models, average duration, etc. A lot of functionalities here in these dashboards. And I can also go into the logs section and see all the information in raw format so that I can work it in the way that I want, okay? So here I will see different lines for different requests. And I will see information about prompt tokens, completion tokens, which model was used. And very importantly, this is supporting response streaming. So if I have a response streaming, I will see chunks of information, and I will see the prompts and the completions. In order to provide a view of the inputs and outputs aggregated in a nice way, we can use the magic of custom query language. And here I've done a query. And I can easily export this to a CSV, okay? And this is helpful to export this information because now I will go to AI Foundry, okay? And in AI Foundry, I can do automatic or manual evaluations. So I will select a new manual evaluation. I will import the CSV that I just exported with the data. I will map the inputs and outputs of this data. Okay, so I can see here that the data was imported. I will just map this input and output. That's done, okay? I will select the model for the evaluation, and I will hit run to start the evaluation. So I will get an output, okay? And I have an expected response. As part of the manual evaluation, me, as an AI engineer, I should now put thumbs up, thumbs down, according to the evaluation that I'm doing on the performance of the model, okay? And now I can decide if this model is appropriate for my application, if I should swap it for another one or not, okay? So this is very powerful for us to understand what is the best model for the job.
So we saw a lot of things here. Let me quickly recap a little bit, Alex. First of all, we saw a very tight integration between Azure API Management and AI Foundry, right? So Azure API Management, now generally available, supports prompts and completion logging. Remembering the challenges at the beginning, I want more control. I want to have better visibility here. So I'm taking these prompts and completion. I'm using the model selection and API AI Foundry. And with this cycle, I'm happy or I'm able to continuously evaluate my models while helping our customers to move from selection of the right models to building AI apps and agents to actually productizing it and bringing it to production here. So we saw Azure API Foundry and the model catalog. But what, Alex, if, let's say, I want to use any of the third-party other models that are out there, how would I do this with Azure API Management?
Yes. So we want to provide a customer choice. And we know that customers, they have a lot of setups with multi-cloud environments. And they want to run models locally as well. And we have made the policies from API management generic and to support both OpenAI compatible models and the pass-through to support any models. That is the case, for example, with Bedrock from AWS, and we are adding support for additional models as well. And to see this in action, we have another demo that in this case, I went to Hugging Face, directly to Hugging Face, and I have browsed for different models and I identified that I want to use DeepSeek as an example, okay? Right from Hugging Face, I can select inference providers, okay? And in this case, I can see that I have an inference provider that provides me an endpoint to consume this API. So I go to Azure API Management. In a similar experience, I select the language model API. And here in the bottom, you'll see that we provide this OpenAI API compatibility or the pass-through API. Okay, so in this case, DeepSeek has OpenAI API compatibility, and I will give the name for the API, in this case, DeepSeek API. I will use the same base path as the name. And now for the URL, I need to use the inference endpoint that Hugging Face provides me, right? So I will try to copy-paste here. So it's a little bit challenging to copy-paste. Now, yes. So I will copy-paste this URL into the API management. And now I will configure also the product. In this case, I will select another product, like Hugging Face, in order to group the APIs. And I will put the access key. This value will be stored as a named value and secured with Azure Key Vault. And now I will configure the policies, okay? So in this case, I will not use the token consumption. We have seen this already, semantic caching the same. It will be cool to see the content safety in action. So I will start to select a content safety endpoint and then configuring the text moderation configurations with different severity levels. And for one of the example severity levels for the hate, I will select the level. And this is very cool. I can select block lists with specific keywords and regular expressions. And in this case, I have regular expressions to detect PII data and also regular expressions to identify who are my competitors so that I don't allow to put their names in the prompts. And then I can use also hacking attempts and jailbreak attacks and block that automatically, okay? So now I will review what I've configured. I can see here the endpoint for the API. I can see that the API is being configured with this authorization access key. I can see the AI content safety parameters with the text moderation configuration and these different block lists for PI data and other configurations, okay? So now my API is being created and I can see that it was imported. I can see the operations, okay? Right from within API management, I can search for the completions operation, and I can test it directly from here, okay? So I need to specify a body, and again, I will go to the Hugging Face because they provide me a sample. I will just use this exact sample, the same JSON content, and I will just copy paste this, and now I'm ready to test the API. Okay, very simple. I don't need to do anything else. And I can see here, if I scroll down a bit, that I have a successful response. And if I scroll down a little bit more, I can see the completion that I got from this Hugging Face. Okay, this was a successful response. And now let me try what happened if I put something that is not supposed with and test the content safety. So a strange thing to say here, I hate everyone, and I will, yeah, sometimes it happens, especially in the morning. So you can see here that the content safety blocked this API request, But I think this is even more cooler. Let's imagine that I'm now putting here sensitive information like my social security number. This is not my actual social security number, but I'm putting here the format of a social security number. And you don't want to pass this to the LLM. You want to block this because you are not supposed to, to provide this kind of information. And you can see here that was also blocked by the content safety. And it was just a very basic policy that I just need to configure. From AI Foundry, I can, iterate and specify more block lists if I need to.
All right, so we did see we can use third-party API models here, but we also saw content safety, right? So just as a reminder, this is also generally available, especially if you think about some of the challenges we have seen at the beginning, better security, more guardrails. So definitely content safety is one of these things that we are providing our customers to do this. I really like the demo with your social security number here. All right, so now we're going to jump into our second part of the session. And before we're going to jump in there, let me take you on a very short evolution of protocols. At the beginning, I kind of like to call it the floppy disk era. We had a protocol, RPC binary protocol, to use to transmit RPC requests and responses in a binary format. Then we were kind of entering our USB driver era, where we had SOAP using XML for messaging formatting to facilitate the exchange of more structured information, right? Then it kind of took off. REST APIs in the JSON format used for data exchanges on the web. So where are we now? We're in the era of AI. We're in the era of intelligence agents. So everyone has talked about MCP, the Model Context Protocol. And it's truly given the way to extend our AI agents, or giving it the capabilities to now start to extend it with external data sources and resources here. And definitely, we're not going to stop here. A2A is already on the horizon, right? But for right now, let's focus a little bit on MCP and what it means for our session. I think we've all heard it. Microsoft is all into the Model Context Protocol. Microsoft or MCP follows a client-server architecture. So there are two different types of transports for MCPs, local and remote. And especially in our area, we are going to focus on the remote transport, even though both of them use JSON RPC to exchange messages, right? And especially for remote, they are leveraging HTTP with server-sent events. So a lot of you familiar in the API space should be nodding and saying, oh, OK, this sounds very, very familiar. So remote MCP servers can be thought of as an API. And the same things we have done for years now, the same governance, security enhancements, can and will apply the same for the remote MCP server space here. So a lot of you might have seen this picture where MCP is compared to as the USB-C to connect your external data sources to your AI models. It's a standardized way to have these integrations up and running, but for you to also work. Who's actually built a remote MCP server here? So you can see people are getting started with this. And we are working a lot with our customers, with our partners. But what are some of the challenges if you actually want to get started? Or what are some of the things we are already hearing in that space? One of them is AI is moving super fast. So developer velocity is still like something a lot of people care about. What about all of the efforts you have done and put into building REST APIs? And now suddenly we are talking about a new protocol. You have to start skilling up your developers, all of these things. Another big concern, security, especially for remote, right? And then last but not least, a lot of the big enterprises who are now looking at MCP and how it can be adopted. It's how can I register, or how can I get sense in what my MCP ecosystem will look like in my organization? And how can I expose this now that it's here to my developer audience? So I don't think this comes as a surprise, but this is, again, where Azure API Management, with all of its AI gateway capabilities, comes in. And one of the very first, very exciting announcements we have today is we talked about duplicating efforts. You've spent a lot of years building REST APIs. So what if we tell you today, if you go into your API management and you can actually transform these REST APIs as remote MCP servers? So that's one of the things we are announcing today. And that's what I'm going to show you in my demo. So in my demo, I'm right here in my Azure API Management service. I'm going to use an on-call API. Some of you might have heard of the SRE agent. So you already have this on-call API up and running. It's a REST API. So now with the latest MCP server capabilities we are offering in Azure API Management, you can quickly create a new remote MCP server. So you can pick and choose, depending on your API inventory here in API Management, which API you want to transform. You can pick and choose the endpoints you want to expose as tools, giving you lots of flexibility, lots of guardrails in managing them as well. You can, of course, still configure. Once configured, you can still, of course, go in and you can change depending on your needs. And we also support policies on a remote MCP server level here. So for me to show some of the policies in place, I'm going to switch over to VS Code. And with our VS Code extension, we also support MCP support here now. So if I open this, I'm now able to see my on-call endpoint. I'm also able to see the different tools that we have. We talked about policies and how policies work on remote MCP servers. So what I'm showing is I'm using Copilot to help me iterate on my policies. So I was able to ask Copilot for help with a rate limiting policy here. I'm then going to copy paste it in here. And I put a rate limiting policy on my remote MCP server. And now I want to test this. For testing, I'm going to use MCP Inspector. I only need the remote MCP server URL. We support SSE and streamable HTTP and API management. So both of these are supported. So now once I switch over to MCP Inspector, I'm able to test my remote MCP server. As you can see, I'm connected. I'm going to list the tools. I can see that the 3 tools that I previously configured are able right now. Keep in mind, I put a rate limiting policy on top of my remote MCP server. So that's why it seems like something isn't quite working there yet. It seems like the rate limiting policy is put in place. And once I go over and looking at my console here, I can also see that the rate limiting policies for my remote MCP server is also in place. So showcasing that we also support policy support on our remote MCP servers, which were previously just simple REST APIs.
So security is top of mind when you think about MCP, right? Very exciting protocol, but everyone, of course, is afraid about some drawbacks in terms of security. We have been working hard in order to address some of those challenges. And we have a feature from API Management that is the Credential Manager that allows us to authorize to backend MCP servers automatically. And we have also the ability to protect remote MCP servers with OAuth directly from within API Management. We'll have a demo session tomorrow where we'll show this in a lot more detail. But to get a sneak preview on these capabilities, I've here built a demo that combines the real-time API from Azure OpenAI that uses WebSockets underneath. And I've configured here 2 different APIs. Weather API, very basic API, and the Spotify API, just as Spotify provides. And I can see the operations from the Spotify API. And nothing to be done here. Okay, I just imported the API, and the API is configured. And then I can go to the MCP servers configuration that Julia was just describing. And for this, I have two different MCP servers, one for the weather service and one for the Spotify. Important here to see that I have a lot of operations for this API, but I'm doing a fine-grained control and saying that the agent can only access my user's playlist, okay, and is able to pause and play back the music, nothing else, okay? So I'm fine-grained what the agent can do. And then I can configure the policies like Julia was describing. I can put here, enhanced policies to control the agent, okay? And now if I go to the credential manager, I will see here the Spotify credential manager. This allows me to get authorizations automatically for the Spotify account, okay, on behalf of the user. I'm using, in this case, Spotify, but I can configure here multiple identity providers, such as Microsoft Enter ID, Google, Salesforce, ServiceNow, or any other OAuth 2 provider. Is generic, okay, so that we can use this with any backend that supports the OAuth protocol, okay? So I've already this configured, and now let's see this in action with the real-time API combining with MCP servers.
Hey there, I'm 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗶cie, your cheerful DJ. I mix up the vibes, play your favorite tunes, and keep the beats rolling. Let's get this party started.
Hey, I'm at Microsoft Build in Seattle, and I was wondering what's the weather outside.
It's sunny and 61 degrees Fahrenheit outside in Seattle. Perfect weather for enjoying some good tunes.
Which playlist do you suggest?
Now first, I need to get authorization from your Spotify account. Let's get you connected. I'll send you the link to authorize now. I've sent you the link to authorize your Spotify account. Please check it out, and then I'll suggest some playlists for you.
Okay, I'm authorized.
Here are some playlists I recommend for this sunny day. Relax on sunny days. Vibe coding. Which one would you like to groove to?
Vibe coding sounds awesome.
Vibe coding is now playing. Enjoy the beats and...
This is cool, but I have to continue with my presentation.
No worries, I'll pause the music for you. Enjoy the beats of Microsoft Build. Music is paused. Have a great presentation.
Very cool, Alex. So we saw a bunch of different things, right? Security being one of the core pieces here, and allowing how you can connect to your third-party APIs using API management, and to make the remote MCP server secure and accessible for our 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 of enterprises now that MCPs are growing and everyone is starting to adopt these, even we as Microsoft, we are being kind of thrown into the same challenges as well. So now that everyone starts to use these, how can Microsoft or how can any of these enterprises out there control, first of all, which MCP servers are allowed within the organization, and how can we expose these remote MCP servers to our organizations? So this is where a need of a lot of big enterprises wanting a private registry for their remote MCP servers. Azure API Center, as part of the API Management Platform Services portfolio, is now offering these capabilities. You can have your first-party MCP servers running on Azure API Management. You can have third-party MCP servers also running on API Management for logging and security capabilities. And all of these coming together in your MCP registry for exposing these capabilities to your developer audience. So for my last demo, let's dive right in. I'm going to start off with where we left off, my on-call API. API Center is part of the API Management Platform, platform portfolio here, and it's truly this one registry, this one inventory, where you can bring in all of the information in one place. In environments, you can see I have a bunch of different API management services up and running where I have different assets deployed. So I want to have this one single place where I can register APIs or now also remote MCP servers. The good thing about API Center is you can store additional information on top of your assets. Like in my example, I have 4 different custom metadata like internal, external, VS Code, portal visibility. So this way you can group or you can put certain tags on your assets. Like for example, here I want to clarify which of these remote MCP servers are external. Who are these running, coming from third-party remote MCP servers here? So if I now switch back and search for all of these together, I will again see all of the information in one single place, but just for you to better understand how custom metadata works on API Center here. So we saw before Alex using the Spotify remote MCP server, also the weather one, and I also used the on-call one in my first demo here. So if I click into my on-call remote MCP server, and just to show you what additional information you want to store, you want to maybe at some point also expose to your developer audience here, here you can see how metadata is being stored. You can, of course, modify these on an API or also an MCP level. You can also store additional information like a GitHub repository, for example, or installation guides for VS Code. So there are a bunch of different things you can bring together in one central place. Every API Center comes with an API Center portal. An API Center portal is a way for your developer audience to consume these. You can customize it in terms of your name, but you also can now enable semantic search here. Visibility is a core concept because maybe not every remote MCP server you want to expose to your developer audience. I have a tag called VS Code, which I only want to expose MCP servers that should be consumed in VS Code here. So that's why I switched the visibility settings and configured them. So now if I open my API Center portal, which is essentially a web-based portal experience, because we support Microsoft Entra, only internal developers of your organization are now able to see these assets, are now able to consume these. I already mentioned semantic search, so developers will better and more efficiently find the right APIs, right MCP servers based on their needs. And now I can see only the ones that should be consumed in VS Code are now here for me to find. One of them, of course, being our on-call MCP server. So what are some things that I can do here now? Depending on different deployment locations, developer can find the information here. I can select the endpoint. Or we also saw previously, I installed the VS Code installation guidance here. So now if I click on it, it will automatically open this in VS Code, ready for me as a developer to be used in API Center, in VS Code. It's already up and running. It detected the 3 tools that we previously defined. What I'm actually going to do here for a moment is I'm going to stop this because one of the latest capabilities we are offering now. Imagine if you're a developer already in VS Code, and rather than going to a developer portal, you actually just want to ask Copilot to bring me the right tools, to bring me the right MCP servers. So we have a tight integration with VS Code. We are exposing our own tools. One of them is searching APIs, searching remote MCP servers, getting the information that is needed for me to consume it, and then also, ideally, immediately installing this right here in VS Code. So I'm going to ask VS Code here to help me find my on-call MCP server, and also, in addition to that, immediately install it in my settings JSON file so it just works, and I can just go and interact with it here. So let's send off the request here and see what Copilot does. So Copilot is now going to call these tools. First of all, it's going to explain me these different steps. So it's going to look into API Center. It's going to get me the right information. It's going to find me the SSE endpoints. It's then going to call our the right tools. So it's going to find the right MCP server. It's going to get all of the different assets, like the right endpoints, the right versions if you have different versions in there as well, the right definitions and information that is all needed for it to be consumed in VS Code here. So once this is done, it seems like it found the right endpoint. But because I asked Copilot to not just give me the endpoint, I just want it to be installed for me in agent mode. That's what Copilot Studio is going to do. And it's going to take the information and put it in the right format in my settings JSON file. And now it's ready for me to be used here without me having to do a single thing, right? I only had to provide one text prompt, which is great. So let's keep the changes here and click the Start button. And it should show the 3 tools that we previously defined for my on-call API. Perfect. So that's the discovery experience all through Copilot Studio. Let me check if it also found the different tools in Copilot Studio here as well. And now what's the discovery or the consumption experience now that after I've discovered them? Now I can start interacting with these tools through my remote MCP server here. So again, it's going to call me, ask me, hey, do you want to run this tool? Are we sure we want to do this? I can hit continue. It's based on my text prompt. I wanted to find the right on-call people, but also the right on-call people for next week. So I'm going to hit the Start button here. And yeah, Copilot Studio is just going to consume the information without, again, me having to leave my IDE. And I can consume the information ready for me here in VS Code. So we talked about the pro-code developer experience. What about the low-code developer experience as well? I think Copilot Studio did announce also MCP support, right? So some of you might have noticed that I had a custom metadata tag said yes to Copilot Studio consumption. Maybe not every MCP server should be consumed by your low-code developer audience. So that's why I have these certain tags for certain remote MCP servers. And now with our Copilot Studio integration, I'm able to also expose these capabilities not just to my professional developer audience, but also to my low-code developers as well. Copilot Studio supports supports SSE, but also streamable HTTP. Depending on if you have API keys configured for your auth, you're able to provide the information as well to the Power Platform or to Copilot Studio. So now once I switch over to Copilot Studio, my low-code developers can pick this up. How is it going to be consumed in Copilot Studio? So through actions, I'm able to add a custom connector, which is how they are exposing MCP support. I'm able to call my SSE endpoint to call my weather API or my weather MCP server. I'm able to connect here, which I've previously done. That's why you can see the check mark. But once all of this is configured, I can now also leverage and integrate into the Copilot Studio here as well. So let's test it for a second. My weather agent, I'm just going to say hi. It's going to detect that, first of all, we have the action added, our remote MCP server. It's going to greet us with already information about the weather. And now let's just test it one more time. I'm going to provide the zip code of Seattle, and it's able to successfully call by my remote MCP server here as well. As you've probably noticed in the demo, I showcase these third-party MCP servers. So I'm very excited to announce or to tell you we are working very closely with our partners who are right now getting started of building these remote MCP servers. One of the things we are very tightly working with them is having a more deeper integration into API Center to let you onboard more easily to these remote MCP servers that our partners are working on. And with this being said, we talked a lot about what Microsoft does, what features we are exposing. But we actually have our special guest coming up on stage who's going to talk a little bit about what their journey looks like and how they've used Azure API Management to help them get onboarded with their MCP's journey. So welcome, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you. Is my mic working? There it goes. There it goes. Hey, everyone. I'm Evan Cohen, Director of Product at UiPath. I want to share a little bit about us before I dive in. Since 2005, it has been UiPath's mission to automate the monotonous and enable humans to focus on more meaningful work. We began with UI automation, which is commonly known as robotic process automation, or RPA. And from 2018 to today, UiPath has evolved into a robust, open agentic platform for the orchestration of end-to-end business processes. And we're trusted by over 10,000 of the world's largest enterprises in the world to orchestrate humans, robots, across business processes. So we do this with the support of the community that is incredible, of over 3 million developers, 7,000 partners, and we're active in over 100 countries. We've been working closely with Microsoft to unlock the power of agents for our customers. And last month, we announced bidirectional integration between UiPath and Copilot Studio to enable joint customers to reuse what they've built between different ecosystems and build new hybrid solutions. So you can always use the best tool for the job. And today, I'm excited to share one of the ways that we're looking at MCP. So let's look at how we can quickly build and deploy MCP servers across your organization by leveraging UiPath's platform and Microsoft's APIM MPC integration. So we're going to start inside of UiPath Studio. Now, this is our unified low-code IDE and we're going to start with Autopilot for Developers, which is UiPath's agent that turns natural language into easy-to-comprehend automations across APIs, agents, documents, user interfaces, etc. So we're going to build a workflow that searches GitHub for open issues that were created in this repository from the past week, and returns the name and issue ID pairs in the response. And Autopilot's going to go ahead and generate that for me. I can review what it came up with, validate that the outputs are what I expect, and then I can accept those changes and test our workflow to make sure that it works the way that I expect. So I can provide the repository name, test it, and it's working as expected. So great. In less than a minute, we were able to add a new tool to our MPC server. Next, I'm going to show you how we can consume it. So I'm going to publish this workflow that we created as a tool in our MPC server. Now, UiPath's Autopilot and other agents built natively on the UiPath platform can consume these MPC servers directly, but that might not be true for other agents built by other teams or other departments who have various ways of managing authentication. And that's where we can use Microsoft's APIM integration to provide a secure front end for everyone who's using our MPC servers. So we've already taken the liberty of adding an integration for Microsoft's APIM MPC to our UiPath MPC server that we just published, where we can now securely expose it for consumption within my organization to all agents with MPC support, built with low code or otherwise. So this is a great way to expose my UiPath MPC servers to the rest of the IT landscape in a centralized way with all of the policies, credential management, governance controls that you've come to expect from APIM. Now, I'm going to flip this around and showcase how we can actually consume this MPC server by connecting our own Autopilot agent to it. So first, I'm going to move back to Studio. Then I'm going to open up Autopilot and then establish a connection between Autopilot and our MPC server that we added to APIM. And now I'll ask Autopilot if I have any GitHub issues, which haven't been automated yet. And Autopilot's going to query our MPC server, which is now hosted in APIM, and proxied back to UiPath. And that might take a few seconds. But once the results come back, I can, maybe give it one more second. It should start streaming any second now. OK, there it goes. Awesome. So now that we have these results back, I can even start asking Autopilot to start building this automation for me. Now, rapid development and reuse of MPC servers is essential for creating a set of scalable tool chains. And by combining UiPath with APIM, we can empower agents across the enterprise with a rich library of tools. In this case, one that was actually even generated by an agent. So it is now your turn to build. If you want to learn more about our open agentic ecosystem, you can join us. We have a session at 4:30 this afternoon where we'll be doing a deep dive. And I'll also be leading a panel discussion with Bas, the CTO of Copilot Studio, and one of our joint customers. So I look forward to seeing you folks there.
Thank you so much.
Now back to our team at Microsoft.
Thank you so much. Definitely a huge shout out to UiPath, to all of the partners. We are also on this journey to MCP. We are there to support you. We are also there to learn from you. I know we covered a lot of things, so thank you, Alex. If all of this was a lot, we have two endpoint or two aka.ms links where you can find all of these informations together. One is for the AI gateway capabilities. The other thing is everything around MCP. So go check these out. Definitely stop by after the session or come to our booth if you have any questions. And tomorrow, we are also going to have another deep dive in security around remote MCP servers. And that's it from our side. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.